The first thing you need to know about Betrayal is that it smells like freshly cut grass and lies. I'm Reid Kessler, 35 years old, landscape architect by trade, and apparently the last person to know my wife was screwing our neighbor. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when I first noticed Brooklyn acting strange. Not the usual strange, like her obsession with organizing our spice rack alphabetically, but the kind of strange that makes your gut twist like a garden hose left in the sun. "Honey, I'm going to water the tomatoes," she announced, practically skipping toward the back door. This from a woman who once asked me if plants needed water every day. I watched through our kitchen window as she pranced across our perfectly manicured lawn, my handiwork naturally, toward the fence separating our property from the rental next door. Travis Lennox had moved in 3 months ago, and suddenly my wife of 8 years had developed an interest in horticulture that would make Martha Stewart jealous. Brooklyn was giggling. Actually giggling, like some teenage girl at a sleepover. She was 33 years old, for Christ's sake, a dental technician who spent her days looking into people's mouths. When was the last time I'd made her giggle like that? I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could see her leaning against the fence, phone pressed to her ear, twirling a strand of her blonde hair around her finger. The same gesture she used to make when we were dating, when I thought I was the luckiest bastard alive. Marriage, I muttered to myself, where the appetizers are cold and the lies are piping hot. That night, after Brooklyn claimed she was exhausted from all that gardening, I lay awake listening to her breathe. She was sleeping too peacefully for someone who'd spent 20 minutes watering 3 tomato plants. Something was off, and my architect's mind, trained to notice when things don't fit together properly, was working overtime. The next morning, I decided to do some reconnaissance of my own. Brooklyn left for work at her usual time, 7:30 sharp, claiming she had an early patient. I waited exactly 15 minutes, then made my way to my workshop in the shed behind our house. From there, I had a perfect view of Travis's backyard. The guy was out there, all right, doing push-ups on his deck like some kind of fitness influencer. Shirtless, naturally. He had the kind of build that screamed, "I peaked in high school, but I'm still trying." All muscle and no substance, like a protein shake with legs. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooklyn. "Working late tonight, don't wait up." Funny thing about dental offices, they close at 5. That evening, I positioned myself in the workshop with a cup of coffee and my laptop, pretending to work on landscape designs while keeping one eye on the backyard. Sure enough, around 8 o'clock, I saw a shadow by the fence. Brooklyn's shadow. She was out there, all right, but she wasn't alone. Travis was on his side of the fence, and they were passing something back and forth through the chain link. Notes. Actual folded pieces of paper, like we were back in middle school. I grabbed my phone and started recording. The video quality wasn't great in the dim light, but it was clear enough to see my wife of 8 years playing secret admirer with the muscle-bound moron next door. I guess Snapchat wasn't secret enough for them, I whispered to myself, watching Brooklyn slip another note through the fence. They kept this up for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my wife giggling and flirting with another man while I sat in my workshop like some kind of suburban private investigator. When she finally came inside, I was already in bed, pretending to sleep. "How was work?" I asked, as she slipped under the covers. "Oh, you know, same old, same old. Mrs. Henderson needed a root canal. Very messy." Liar. Mrs. Henderson had been gone for 6 months. The next few days followed the same pattern. Brooklyn would find excuses to spend time in the backyard, always with her phone, always near the fence. She started wearing makeup to garden. She bought new clothes, tighter clothes. She even started going to the gym, claiming she wanted to get back in shape. Meanwhile, I started my own investigation. Travis Lennox, 34, Worked in sales for some tech company I'd never heard of. Divorced 2 years ago. No kids. Drove a black pickup truck with flames painted on the sides because apparently subtlety wasn't his strong suit. I also discovered he had a history. His ex-wife had filed a restraining order against him during their divorce proceedings. Nothing violent, just harassment and stalking behavior. The kind of guy who couldn't take no for an answer. Perfect match for Brooklyn, apparently. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Brooklyn claimed she was having dinner with her friend Marcy, but I'd already called Marcy's house. Her husband said she was at book club. Brooklyn's lies were getting sloppier, which meant she was getting more confident, or more desperate. I decided it was time for a confrontation. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me appreciate living in Massachusetts. Today, it just felt cold. Brooklyn was in the shower, humming some song I didn't recognize, when I made my decision. I printed out screenshots from my phone, clear images of her and Travis passing notes, timestamps and all. Then I waited. She came down for breakfast wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. Red, form-fitting, definitely not something you'd wear to run errands on a Saturday. "Going somewhere special?" I asked, sliding the photos across the kitchen table like a dealer laying down a winning hand. Brooklyn's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, defiance. "It's not what it looks like," she said, which is exactly what guilty people always say. "Really? Because it looks like my wife is playing pen pals with the neighbor. What's next, friendship bracelets?" She sat down heavily, her hands shaking as she picked up one of the photos. "Reid, you don't understand. Travis and I, we're just friends. He's been going through a rough time since his divorce, and I was just being neighborly." Neighborly. I let the word hang in the air like smoke. "Is that what we're calling it? Because last I checked, being neighborly didn't require secret notes and lying about working late." "I never lied about—" "Mrs. Henderson is gone, Brooklyn. Has been for 6 months. I was at her funeral, remember?" The color drained from her face. She'd been caught, and we both knew it. "Fine," she said, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "Maybe I did bend the truth a little, but that's because I knew you'd react exactly like this. You're jealous and controlling, and you can't stand the thought of me having friends. Friends don't pass secret notes through fences." "You're being ridiculous." She grabbed her purse from the counter. "I'm going out. We can talk about this when you've calmed down." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard her car start, then the screech of tires as she backed out of the driveway too fast. I sat there for a long time, staring at the photos spread across the table. 8 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Secret notes and lies about late patients. But Brooklyn had made one crucial mistake. She thought I was just going to sit there and take it. She thought I was the kind of man who'd back down without a fight, while she carried on with the neighborhood musclehead. She was wrong. I spent the rest of Saturday doing research. Not on Travis. I already knew enough about him. I was researching Brooklyn, her social media accounts, her email. We shared a computer, and she'd never been good with passwords. Her text messages. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair had been going on for 2 months. 2 months of flirty texts, suggestive photos, and detailed plans for when I'd be out of town on business. They'd been in our house, in our bed. Travis had even used my shower, based on one particularly graphic text Brooklyn had sent, describing how amazing he looked with water running down his chest. I felt sick. Not just angry, physically ill, like I'd eaten something rotten. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation on a level I didn't know existed. But as I sat there in my home office, surrounded by evidence of my wife's infidelity, something else began to grow alongside the nausea. A cold, calculating anger that felt different from anything I'd experienced before. Brooklyn thought she was clever. Travis thought he was irresistible. They both thought I was just some boring landscape architect who'd never fight back. Time to prove them wrong. My first call was to Marcy, Brooklyn's best friend and biggest enabler. Marcy had never liked me, thought Brooklyn had settled when she married me. She'd be more than happy to spill whatever dirt she had on the situation. Reid? Marcy sounded surprised when she answered. Is everything okay? Just peachy. Listen, I wanted to thank you for covering for Brooklyn last night. Dinner ran pretty late, didn't it? There was a pause. Covering for her? Reid, I haven't seen Brooklyn in weeks. Oh. I let confusion creep into my voice. She said you two went to that new Italian place downtown. Must have mixed up her stories. Mixed up her… Reid? What's going on? Nothing. Just trying to keep track of her social calendar. You know how it is. But Marcy was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She's seeing someone, isn't she? I didn't answer directly. Let's just say the new neighbor has been very… neighborly. Travis? Marcy's voice dropped to a whisper. Oh my God, Reid, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. What do you know about him? Not much. But I know about his ex-wife, Jane Flanders, complete psycho. She stalked him for months after their divorce, keyed his car, broke into his apartment, sent him dozens of emails every day. The woman was obsessed. This was interesting. Very interesting. Where is she now? Last I heard she was living in some apartment complex across town. Why? Just curious. Thanks, Marcy. And let's keep this conversation between us, okay? After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in days. Travis's crazy ex-wife was still in town, still obsessed, and probably still looking for ways to get back into his life. Time to give her an opportunity. Sunday morning, Brooklyn came home looking like she'd spent the night in a hotel room. Her hair was messy, her makeup smudged, and she had that satisfied glow that used to be reserved for me. Where were you? I asked, not looking up from my newspaper. Marcy's. We talked all night. Another lie. I'd already confirmed with Marcy that Brooklyn hadn't contacted her. Good. I'm glad you two worked things out. By the way, I made a decision while you were gone. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. What kind of decision? I called a real estate agent. We're selling the house. Brooklyn dropped her mug. It shattered against the kitchen floor, sending coffee and ceramic shards everywhere. You what? We're selling. I figure if you're so unhappy here that you need to find comfort elsewhere, maybe it's time for a change of scenery. Reid, you can't just… Actually, I can. My name's on the deed too, remember? We're meeting with the agent this afternoon. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. This is insane. You're being completely irrational. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, my wife is having an affair with the neighbor, lying about it, and expecting me to just pretend everything's fine. Selling the house seems pretty rational to me. Brooklyn's face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Reid, please, can't we talk about this? Go to counseling or something? The time for talking was before you started screwing Travis. Now we're past talking. She left the room crying, but I didn't follow her. I had phone calls to make. The real estate agent, Mr. Derry, was exactly what I'd hoped for. A sharp-tongued gossip who knew everyone in town and wasn't shy about sharing information. He arrived at 2 o'clock sharp, driving a BMW that was trying too hard to look expensive. Divorce? He asked the moment he walked in the door. What makes you say that? 20 years in this business. I can smell a divorce sale from 3 blocks away. Plus, your wife looks like she's been crying since Christmas. Brooklyn had locked herself in the bedroom and refused to come out, which was fine by me. This conversation would go better without her input. How quickly can we get it on the market? Depends how motivated you are. I can have photos done tomorrow, listing up by Wednesday. But I have to ask, you sure about this? Market's a little soft right now. Might be better to wait until spring. I'm sure. In fact, I want you to do something specific with the marketing. Derry raised an eyebrow. Oh? I want you to emphasize how perfect this would be for a single person. Someone who values privacy, quiet neighbors, that sort of thing. Quiet neighbors? He glanced toward Travis's house, where music was blasting from the backyard. You sure about that? Trust me on this one. After Derry left, I made my second call of the day. Finding Jane Flanders hadn't been difficult. There's only so many apartment complexes in town, and crazy ex-wives tend to leave an impression on landlords. Jane? This is Reid Kessler. I live next door to Travis Lennox. Silence on the other end, then, is he okay? Did something happen? The desperation in her voice was perfect. Absolutely perfect. He's fine, but I wanted to talk to you about something. Could we meet for coffee? An hour later, I was sitting across from Jane Flanders in a Starbucks downtown, and I understood immediately why Travis had needed a restraining order. She was attractive enough, blonde, petite, well-dressed, but there was something unsettling about her eyes. They had the intensity of someone who'd never learned the difference between love and obsession. How is he? She asked, before I'd even sat down. Does he seem happy? Is he eating enough? He never ate enough when we were together. He seems fine, but that's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I think he might be making a mistake. Jane leaned forward, hanging on every word. What kind of mistake? He's been seeing someone. A married woman. My wife, actually. Her face went through the same series of expressions Brooklyn's had yesterday, but in reverse order. Defiance, panic, recognition, and finally, rage. That bastard, she whispered. He always goes for the ones he can't have. It's like a game to him. I'm sorry, I thought you should know. No, I'm glad you told me. Travis needs someone who understands him, someone who can see past his walls. This married woman, she's just using him for excitement. She doesn't really love him. I nodded sympathetically. That's exactly what I was thinking. What's her name? Brooklyn Kessler. Jane pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. Within seconds, she'd found Brooklyn's Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn, probably her dental office bio. She's pretty, Jane said, and there was something dangerous in her voice. I suppose. Look, Jane, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but we're selling our house, moving away from all this drama. The realtor thinks it'll go fast. Great neighborhood, quiet street, perfect for someone who wants to be close to, well, you know. Jane's eyes lit up like I'd just told her Christmas was coming early. Close to Travis? Right next door, same fence line where they've been passing their little love notes. Love notes? The dangerous tone was back. Probably nothing serious, but still. I finished my coffee and stood up. Well, I should get going. It was nice meeting you, Jane. Take care of yourself. As I walked away, I could hear her on the phone, probably calling every real estate agent in town. By tomorrow, she'd know our house was for sale. By Wednesday, she'd be calling Mr. Derry to schedule a showing. Phase 1 was complete. Tuesday evening, Brooklyn cornered me in the kitchen as I was making dinner. The house is already getting calls, she said. Derry says someone wants to schedule a showing for tomorrow. That's great. Maybe we'll get lucky and find a buyer quickly. Reid, please. Can't we call this off? I'll end things with Travis. We can go to counseling, work this out. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in days. She was beautiful. I'd give her that. The kind of beautiful that made men stupid, made them forgive things they shouldn't forgive. But I wasn't feeling stupid anymore. Too late for that, Brooklyn. You made your choice when you decided Travis was more interesting than your marriage. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. Then you won't mind if it ends. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. What if I can't end it? There it was, the truth finally. She didn't want to end it. She wanted to have both, the security of marriage and the excitement of an affair. She wanted to eat her cake and sleep the baker too. Then I guess we're definitely selling the house. Wednesday's showing was everything I'd hoped for and more. Jane arrived 30 minutes early, dressed like she was going to a job interview. She'd done her research, knew the square footage, the property taxes, the school district ratings. She was prepared. Brooklyn tried to hide in the bedroom again, but I made sure she was downstairs when Jane walked through the front door. "This is my wife, Brooklyn," I said, watching Jane's face carefully. "Brooklyn, this is Jane Flanders. She's very interested in the house." The two women shook hands, and I could practically see the electricity crackling between them. Brooklyn had no idea who Jane was, but Jane knew exactly who Brooklyn was. "It's a beautiful home," Jane said, never taking her eyes off Brooklyn. "I love how intimate the backyard is. So private, perfect for getting to know the neighbors." Brooklyn smiled politely, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. The tour went perfectly. Jane asked all the right questions, complimented all the right features, and made it clear she was a serious buyer. When we got to the master bedroom, she lingered by the window that overlooked Travis's house. "What's the neighbor like?" she asked innocently. "Oh, he's very friendly," Brooklyn said before I could answer. "Very neighborly." Jane smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "I'm sure he is." After Jane left, Brooklyn paced around the living room like a caged animal. "There was something weird about her," she said. "The way she looked at me. And did you see how interested she was in Travis's house? Maybe she's just thorough. Reid, I have a bad feeling about this. What if she's some kind of stalker or something?" If only you knew, I thought. That evening, I was in my workshop when I heard voices from the backyard. Brooklyn and Travis were at the fence, but their conversation sounded different, tense, worried. I crept closer, staying in the shadows. "Told you this was a bad idea," Travis was saying. "Married women are nothing but trouble. You didn't seem to think I was trouble when you were in my bed last week. That was different. Your husband didn't know then. He still doesn't know. Not really. He suspects, but he can't prove anything." I almost laughed out loud. Couldn't prove anything? I had photos, screenshots, a detailed timeline of their affair. I could prove it in court if I wanted to. "What about this woman who wants to buy the house?" Travis asked. "She seemed really interested in me when she was looking around your backyard." "I noticed that too. There's something off about her. Maybe I should do some research, find out who she is." Too late for that, I thought. Jane was already 3 steps ahead of both of them. Thursday morning brought the call I'd been waiting for. Jane wanted to make an offer. Full asking price, cash, no inspection, 30-day closing. She must really love the house, Brooklyn said when I told her. Must be the neighborhood charm. That afternoon, while Brooklyn was at work, I got a visit from Travis. He knocked on the front door like a civilized person, but his body language was anything but civilized. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" "You know what? This whole thing with selling the house. Brooklyn's a mess, and I think you're doing this just to hurt her." I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. "Let me ask you something, Travis. If you found out your wife was cheating on you, what would you do?" "I'd handle it like a man. Talk to her. Work things out." "Is that what you did with Jane?" The color drained from his face. "How do you know about Jane?" "Small town. People talk. They say she was pretty broken up when you left her. Took it real hard." "Jane's crazy. She stalked me for months. That must have been terrible for you. Having someone obsessed with you, following you around, not taking no for an answer." I paused, letting that sink in. "Kind of like what you're doing with my wife." "That's not the same thing. Isn't it? You moved in next door to a married couple and immediately started pursuing the wife. You knew she was married, but you didn't care. That sounds pretty obsessive to me." Travis stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. "You better watch yourself, Reid. Brooklyn's going to leave you whether you sell this house or not. She's not happy with you." "Maybe, but at least she'll be Jane's problem instead of mine." What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Friday was closing day. Jane arrived at the lawyer's office with a cashier's check and a smile that could have powered the building. Brooklyn looked like she was attending her own funeral. I'm so excited to be your neighbor, Jane said to Travis, who'd shown up to support Brooklyn through the process. I feel like we're going to be great friends. Travis looked confused. I'm sorry. Do we know each other? Not yet, but I'm sure we will. I'm Jane Flanders. I'll be living right next door. I watched Travis's face go through every emotion in the human spectrum. Confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, panic. Jane, what are you doing here? Buying a house, isn't it wonderful? We'll be neighbors again, just like we always talked about. Brooklyn looked back and forth between them. You two know each other? Oh yes, Jane said brightly. Travis and I used to be married. He's the love of my life. The silence in that room was deafening. Brooklyn stared at Travis stared at Jane, and Jane stared at Travis like he was a steak and she hadn't eaten in weeks. This is perfect, Jane continued, oblivious to the tension. Now I can keep an eye on Travis, make sure he's eating right, not getting involved with the wrong sort of people. She looked directly at Brooklyn when she said that last part. The closing proceeded in stunned silence. Papers were signed, keys were exchanged, and just like that, Jane Flanders became Travis Lennox's next-door neighbor. As we walked out of the lawyer's office, Brooklyn grabbed my arm. You knew, she whispered. You knew who she was. I knew. How could you do this to me? I didn't do anything to you, Brooklyn. I just sold our house to the highest bidder. What happens next is between you, Travis, and Jane. That night, as we packed boxes in what used to be our home, I could hear Jane through the fence. She was playing music, love songs from the 80s, and singing along at the top of her lungs. Every few minutes, she'd call out Travis's name, asking if he needed anything, if he was hungry, if he wanted to come over for dinner. Brooklyn sat on our bed, crying into a box of her clothes. She's insane, she sobbed. She's going to make his life hell. Probably. Doesn't that bother you? I thought about it for a moment. Not really. He knew what he was doing when he decided to break up my marriage. Actions have consequences. What about me? What am I supposed to do now? That's up to you. You can keep seeing Travis and deal with Jane, or you can end it and try to rebuild your life. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. The next morning, moving trucks arrived to take our stuff to the apartment I'd rented across town. As the movers loaded the last box, I took one final look at the backyard where this whole thing had started. Jane was already out there hanging laundry on a line she'd installed along the fence. She waved cheerfully when she saw me. Thank you, she called out. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. From Travis's side of the fence, I could hear him on the phone, probably calling his lawyer about another restraining order. Good luck with that, I thought. Jane owned property now. She had every right to be there. Brooklyn came up beside me, looking defeated. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said. I know. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I looked at her one last time. This woman I'd loved for 8 years, who'd thrown it all away for a few months of excitement with the neighbor. Maybe someday, but not today. As our car pulled away from the house, I could see Jane in my rearview mirror. She was standing at the fence, talking animatedly to someone on the other side. Probably Travis, who was probably trying to ignore her. They deserved each other, all three of them. Brooklyn started crying again, but I didn't comfort her. She'd made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Just like Jane had to live with hers. Just like Travis had to live with his. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's just stepping back and letting people destroy themselves. As I watched them through the rain-soaked window of our new apartment that night, Brooklyn, Travis, and Jane, all trapped in the suburban hell they'd created, I realized something important. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it's just fertilized with better bullshit. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get to watch from a safe distance while it all burns down.